everyone, welcome to another edition of Not a Collection of Parts. My name is Julian Baker, and I am here to talk about whatever inspires me or what I happen to be interested in on any given particular week. But please let me know, and let me know in the comments or anything else what you're watching in terms of what you want to see and anything I can talk about as we're going on. This week I'm going to be talking about diagnosis, in particular medical diagnosis, and you know who we are as manual and movement therapists. If you're not watching this as a manual and movement therapist, then perhaps somebody that goes to see a therapist or has some treatment, but also maybe sometimes you have a diagnosis. And I think of diagnosis as you know, when somebody walks in through the door to see me, it's like I'm unraveling a mystery, if you know what I mean. The clues are obscure, the background is often missing, and the stakes really are high. A lot of people come to see me because, you know, it's the last resort, as it were. So this situation is that we therapists encounter where people perhaps have got a medical diagnosis, they've got a name of a condition as such, and perhaps they've come with help for that or something around that. You know, and it can be anything at all. But it might also be the fact that we haven't got all the details from them. So we're going to look at the challenges involved in how we deal with stuff like this when presented with a diagnosis, and how we can approach treatment, and how we have to consider perhaps some of those diagnoses, if you like, as they come along, and also a little bit of, you know, what happens if the diagnosis is wrong. So the therapist's initial task, I think, is we're just trying to assess their current situation and you know, determine the nature of the problem that they're coming with, and also you know, work out where to start, what their expectation is. There's so many layers to this that when we start off that you know, I can talk for days about how to deal with expectations and so on and so forth. The object of trying to find a starting point, if you like, is because what I'm trying to do is trying to find a place from which to get good notes, and it's a big subject, and I'll talk about it another time. But taking notes is the only way that you have of finding out how good you are as a therapist. Nothing else really counts. So, as I said, it is a subject. It's a big subject for another time. Medical diagnosis is a tricky one. So, for a doctor, you know, it can be deciphering a code. It's that Sherlock Holmes thing, and sometimes it's really clear, and sometimes, you know, you've got to have tests, and we've got to interpret the tests, and then, you know, even then it's not always clear as to what's going on. So the influence of so many things, there's an influence of so many factors involved. I was just looking this week at some of these things. So a really interesting one here that I've come up with that I found is depression and insomnia in cancer prevalence, you know, so risk factors. So somebody that has cancer, they're diagnosed with cancer, well, you know, they're not sleeping very well, and there's some depression. Now, did that come about before? Was that present before the diagnosis, or was it as a result afterwards? And then why? You know, what's the issue? Is it about communication? Is it about family? Is it about, you know, what else is going on? So, you know, we may not be able to do anything as far as the cancer is concerned. I'm not interested in treating people with cancer. And actually, in the UK, it is actually illegal to try and or say that you're treating cancer. But certainly we can be a sounding board for somebody that's experiencing depressive illnesses, and you know, perhaps help them as far as their sleep is concerned. It's not a substitute for any other qualified care in relation to depression, but it's just one of those things that, you know, it's showing you that there are going to be other factors involved, particularly in chronic illnesses. Here's another one. Somebody's coming along and they've got osteoarthritis. Now, again, osteoarthritis, as far as a joint in a knee joint, for example, we could be seeing them years later, but the result here is a bit of a study in relation to the incidence of osteoarthritis in knee pain. What else have we got here? We got, what was this one? Oh yeah, this is an interesting one in terms of how things might change something for somebody, depending on where they were, and climate change. I remember a few years ago, or the climate they live in, even the environment they live in. I remember a few years ago, when I was living in Australia, I was helping somebody do their bathroom, refit their bathroom. We built these panels putting into the wall, and I dropped one on my toe, and I broke my little toe. Now, it's not a life-threatening injury. And I went to the hospital, of course, and they looked at the doctor, said to me, right, okay, you're 2 weeks off your feet. You cannot stand on your feet. You have to elevate your feet for 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks? And everybody's like, 2 weeks for a little broken toe? Aren't you milking it a little bit? Well, the reason being was that, where I was living up in Townsville, it was the tropics, and it was a compound fracture, so I'd broken the skin on the toe, and if infection got into that broken skin, well, just by itself it wouldn't be a problem, but it gets into that bone, and you're 10 days away from having your leg amputated. The infection just rampages through it in terms of the tropics because of the environment that you're living in. So environmental impacts, these are the changes that we have, or, the environments that we have that will impact on any diagnosis. So the limitations of diagnosis and somebody bringing us a named disease are also the fact that sometimes there's an attitudinal problem, and it comes from our system of medicine, whereby there is the idea that you get diagnosed, you take the signs and the symptoms, that's what the definition of diagnosis is, it's signs and symptoms, establish the name of the disease or the dysfunction, and then work out what the treatment's going to be. And so therefore it's kind of a fixing thing, and people have the idea that there is something wrong, and so therefore it should get fixed. And this is what the problem that we have all over the Western world. And we see this as therapists. Somebody waits until they've got a back pain or a problem, and then they address it. Like, come to me, I've got a back pain or a shoulder pain or neck pain. Can you fix it? And it's an extension of that system. And within the field of complementary medicine, I don't think it's necessarily very helpful, but it's understandable. While everything's going fine, we don't seek problems. We don't do the same with other things. We do have the idea that, right, your car is due for a service. So you take your car in, you have it serviced. Is the car broken down? No, you don't wait until it breaks down before you service it or put oil on it or whatever else. So, but we do that with ourselves. We tend not to think about taking care of ourselves to prevent things coming up in the future. And this is where I've heard this a kind of approach being described as being like from doctors, where like you're walking along a riverbank and you see somebody drowning, and you jump in and you pull them out and you resuscitate them and you get them out and they send them on their way, and you're about to go on your way again, and somebody else is in the river and they're drowning, and so you jump in and you save them and you do it all over again, and the same thing again and again and again and again. And you're so busy jumping into the river and dragging people out that you haven't got time to go upstream and work out why they're falling in the first place. We know from so many different studies that £1 spent on prevention as far as medicine is concerned, particularly in mental health. They discovered this they proved this in Scotland. I think it was £1 spent on mental health prevention, dealing with mental health issues, saves £6. That's a huge saving. But of course, the saving is down the track. In terms of 4-year terms of politics, it's just not spent. We don't have that money now, and so therefore, we don't spend it, and we reap the consequences in the future. And we can look at that from everything from climate change to concrete in schools and goodness knows what else. So we don't have necessarily within our medical system the resources to be able to look at why people are falling in the river, as it were. But that doesn't mean to say that we have to adopt that same principle, and I think this is the issue that we have. Just a quick interjection here. It would really, really help me if you would consider becoming one of my Patreon supporters. Just £5 a month. That's the only tier I've got. There's nothing else. There's some extra stuff I put up on there on a reasonably regular basis every week or so. I'll put a picture or a short video up there to give you some extra content, so there's a bit of value in that. If you're on social media, please hit a like and subscribe button. I cannot tell you the help that gives me to do that, and it's incredibly valuable. So thanks very much. I'll let you get back to whatever I was rambling about. People want to be fixed. That's the bottom line, and not everything can be fixed. And sometimes even the things that can be fixed will have an implication. So we want to know whether the thing that I do, whether I do Bowen or something else, can cure them, and we just don't know. And actually, if medicine was honest, and it would say the same thing. You know, like you turn up to accident emergency with a splinter in your finger, there's a 99.9% chance that, you know, somebody's going to take a needle and dig the splinter out and off you go. But there's always that one bit of chance that the splinter will have set off an allergic reaction, or the pulling it out will have send something off, and, you know, 3 days later in intensive care or dead. And you've only got to watch any TV hospital drama. House is my favourite, and you know, and this is what happens. Something really obscure is going on in the body. So as I said, the diagnosis is the using the signs and symptoms, finding the name of the disease, and then treating it along recognisable lines. And then, but the trouble is that at any given point in time, we're all suffering from something or other. You know, there's always something that we've got, whether it be the final stages or advanced stages of cancer, a history of niggling back pain, or, you know, poor self-esteem, or what have you. There are any number of things that are going to impact on our ability to recover from the splinter in our finger. So we talk about in this series the body not being a collection of parts, but the thing that we call ourselves is most certainly a collection of symptoms. It's not just, there's never just going to be one symptom. And I use the example quite often that the body isn't a car. You know, if my car doesn't start, if I go out there tomorrow and tomorrow morning and I turn my key and my car doesn't start, there's a single reason, there's a single engineering mechanical reason that it doesn't start. It can be identified, it can be replicated and fixed. And if the process, in the process the car catches fire, then it's because, you know, the mechanic's at fault, not because the car didn't tell the mechanic what was wrong with them. And the human body isn't a car, and any number of factors will affect a person on any given day, with or without a diagnosis. You know, so for example, you know, some of the reasons that the car didn't start is not because, you know, it woke up feeling dissatisfied, or it doesn't like me because I slammed the door too hard, or, you know, or it just can't be bothered, or it doesn't like its direction in life. Come on, car, put yourself together. It also doesn't start because, you know, of those other factors involved. You know, so for example, if the windscreen wipers are broken, or the rubber's burnt down, worn down, or there's a headlight out, or the, you know, tire is flat, these aren't reasons why the car won't start. You know, those other factors aren't impacting on the mechanical issue as far as the car is concerned. So, you know, that's really what we've got to think about. So as we've looked at some of these ideas and these papers around what else might be going on, and what else do we have here? That's another one here that we had there, that was previous fracture surgery, and let's give it that. Previous fracture surgery is a major risk as far as infection is concerned, and infection is a big one. You know, we just don't know what somebody's outcome of their surgery is going to be. Post-surgery, you know, you can give 25 people exactly the same surgery for exactly the same problem, they'll all have different outcomes. So then, what if the diagnosis is incorrect? And so, how much of a diagnosis, you know, what's the percentage rate that we have of diagnosis that is incorrect? And so I had a little look for that, and again, what we found. Let's go to this one. Where were we? So there was that one. Come back to that. That's right. So diagnosis errors, and there's quite a lot on this actually. There's quite a lot of studies around how, you know, diagnosis is wrong, and looking at, you know, what the impacts of it were. And then there was this paper here, the frequency of diagnostic errors in outpatient care. And this was a big study. This was 3 large observational studies in America. And the what they found was that there's a good one here. Here it is. Let me just highlight this here. That approximately 12 million adults every year, combined estimates from 3 studies yield a rate of outpatient diagnostic errors of 5%. That's quite a lot of studies. There's 12 million people that are misdiagnosed, or the diagnostic errors, and about half of these errors, it says here, half of these errors could potentially be harmful. So the estimate suggests that diagnostic errors affect at least 1 in 20 US adults, And this is the reason for this isn't necessarily because the doctors are wrong or because they're stupid or anything else. Is that there are so many factors that are involved as far as a diagnosis, and it's not always straightforward. It has to be something that is multifactorial, as it were, as far as getting it right. And it's easy to miss. It's easy to miss. It's not, not everybody's house. Not everybody has the access to the things that everybody else does. So, as a therapist is concerned, what I'm looking at is what else is somebody presenting to me over and above their diagnosed condition, and how much of that diagnosed condition is the thing that they're bringing me. And I don't. Let me try and explain this. If somebody has happened recently, I've had quite a few of these that are good examples. Somebody's come to me recently, they're in their mid-50s, they've been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Now, this is a terminal, progressive, and there's lots of different types of MS, and we're not going to go into it, but a terminal progressive disease. Now, I can't cure or fix the MS. But alongside of that, here's somebody that has also had some major surgery as far as their shoulder is concerned. That was prior to the diagnosis. They've got some back pain and pelvic pain after a fall, and they had some limping for that. They've got some swelling through their legs and some circulatory stuff going on. There's a few things that are happening and a few quality of life issues going on. Now, what I don't know, and what nobody knows, is how much of the MS diagnosis is contributing to that, or the pain in the back, or the poor mobility. And the answer is I just don't know. But the focus from all the clinical side of things is that she has MS, and therefore there's going to be the treatments and the medication that goes around that. My issue here is that I don't know. How was the back pain treated? What was the recovery rate post-surgery? And I just have no idea. So my assumption is therefore that somebody is coming to me with this diagnosis. That's fine. Let's consider that, put that to one side, and ask some questions around that. But then also look at, what else can they do? What else are they capable of doing? So I will give that assessment on the basis of how much movement have they got, what's their range, what are they capable of doing, what do they want to do, what's their expectation, and we work from there. Can they get up and take 5 steps? The answer is yes. Well, let's get them doing that. Let's get them with some treatment that reduces that pain, helping sleeping them sleep better, and increase the circulation, get them feeling a little bit more confident about moving. Have a little look at anything else that's come in as far as the back is concerned. What can I look at that's within my range and my experience? And guess what? In a short order time later, what we find is that this person is saying, yes, I can do that. Yes, I want to do that. They've taken those steps, and their quality of life, the feeling that they have is so much better about themselves, irrespective of the condition. Has the MS gone away? Of course, it hasn't gone away. Insert name of condition here. That's not what we're dealing with. What we're dealing with is the fact that over this period of time, this person could be saying their deterioration is marked or accelerated because of the MS. And I'm not necessarily saying that it hasn't, but I'm saying it doesn't appear to be that's a reasonable assumption that this person actually hasn't had the care, the treatment, the movement input that they might have done to help them overcome the injuries that they had before. So once the MS diagnosis kicks in, that's it. That's the whole focus. So it's not that we are ignoring the story, but we are wanting to get the complete picture. The body is not a collection of parts, but it is a collection of symptoms that affect us as a whole. I don't want anybody to think for a minute that I'm saying that I'm invalidating the diagnosis, or that it doesn't matter. That's not what I'm saying at all. But they've got the specialist to deal with that. And sometimes my job is to find out how somebody evaluates themselves. What kind of relationship do they have with their pain or their condition? And that may sound a bit wafty, but sometimes how can I put this? Sometimes our response to pain or personal dysfunction is we just want to get rid of it. We just want it fixed. We just want it, to be gone. And we use language around this that is that represents an enemy, an external force, and we say somebody lost their battle with cancer, and we need to defeat the pain or the disease, overcome it, and get rid of it, and that it's win or lose. Now, I'm not saying somebody should give in or accept inevitabilities. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that not all battles are won or lost. Sometimes there's an uneasy truce, if you like, and then compromise. There's a negotiation. There's a redefining of relationships, if you like, and it's those that will bring hostilities to an end. Court battles. Most court battles don't end in court. They end up with having a discussion, coming to an agreement, because nobody wants to go to that battle. So once we understand that the pain, the headache, whatever it is part of us. Our first response to a headache is react in opposition to it. Oh my God, my head hurts. Let's grab an aspirin and let's try and get rid of it. And it's a natural response. We all do it. But who wants a headache, right? But an aspirin doesn't kick in straight away. In the time it takes, we have a choice. We can be racked with pain and suffer and experience that, or we can notice it. And what do I mean by noticing it? It is just bring your attention to it. Notice it. What does this actually feel like? Sometimes we're so tensed up trying to deal with this pain that we don't really notice anything about it. When was the last time you had the pain? What kind of pain is it? What emotion does it bring up? How do you feel emotionally about it? Is it scary? Is there a behavior that you have that goes along with this? Is it something that makes you tense anywhere else? Is there any other way that you feel uncomfortable? So once we understand that pain is an output from the brain, we say that pain is all in the head. That doesn't mean to say it's imaginary. What we're saying is that it's being generated by nervous impulses going to and from the brain, and any drug that we take is interfering with those impulses that go up and down the spine. So our thoughts and feelings also follow those same pathways. Perhaps the feeling of being ill and needing to rest is equated for you with a sense of being weak or failing somehow. And where did you learn this? What's the voice in your head that tells you this? It's a learned behavior, sure as God made little apples. And I say it repeatedly to people that resting is not failure. And recovery and training are the same thing. You cannot train without recovery, and you can't train effectively and get better if you're not in a recovery system. So noticing things changes things. This is the basis of physics. We notice when particles are observed, they change their behavior. They change the way that they travel. And look for 5 things on your walk to school or journey or whatever you do tomorrow, and even the view out of your window that you've never noticed before. I promise you that they're there, and it will change the way that you look at things. So what if our pain or disease isn't necessarily something we can do anything about, which is standard? What if whatever treatment there isn't going to take it away, or that there's always going to be painful there? Does that mean that our battle is slated to only end in defeat? And well, no, because we can change our relationship with ourselves. The disease, the dysfunction is part of us. It's not something that's external. It's not, an enemy at the gates that's chucking, cannonballs at us. It's part of us, and we can have that relationship, and we can create a change in our own dialogue and our own focus as far as that's concerned. And from a pain perspective, and not necessarily changing the pain, but the feeling that we're on a losing side. I remember years ago, just after Christmas, a couple of years ago, I had a really bad burn on my hand. I'll find a picture for it, but I had this massive big burn that covered my hand, and it was painful. It was really painful, and I just practiced this because I'm always interested. I'm always very interested when I have pain or something's gone wrong. I'm like, okay, what's happening? What's happening in as far as my body is concerned, and it was just really interesting to notice the pain where it was and what was going on, and by focusing on it, it just seemed to change it somehow. It was quite remarkable. I went to ended up having to go to the hospital because it was quite a big old injury, and they said, "Isn't it horribly painful?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it is, but it's not something that I feel the need to have pain relief from. I just don't want it to get infected, and I want it dressed properly." And so it didn't overwhelm me, and maybe something else would. Anything in my teeth, don't like that. So this is what we are, I think, there to do as manual therapists, complementary therapists, that, even when we're faced with an unknown history, when we're not really sure what's going on, we can start to ask questions about somebody and what their behavior is, and how do they feel about it. It's not our problem, it's not our issue, as it were. It's not our condition, and so health and quality of life are very different. The World Health Organization defines health as not merely, it says, it's not merely the absence of disease or infirmity, but a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being. So how many of us can put our hands up and say that we have a state of complete mental and social well-being with an absence of disease or infirmity? I'm going to say that not many of us, probably for periods of time maybe, but not many of us all the time for any length of time. There's always something that's going to come up. Quality of life is a little more complex, and it's defined as an individual's perception of their position in life in the context of the culture and value systems in which they live, and in relation to their goals, expectations, standards and concerns. So it's the feeling of overall life satisfaction as determined by the mentally alert individual whose life is being evaluated. That's hard. That's a overall life satisfaction. How would you grade it? And I think that's going to be very hard for a lot of people to get their head around, if you like. So I just wanted to sort of raise that subject a little bit this week about diagnosis, because it's one of those things that keeps coming up, and it's one of those things that I deal with a lot of people who are have chronic conditions, and they will always have those chronic conditions. But what my aim is to try and help people to sort of to deal with them, work with them, change their own behaviours and their own view, also increase their range of movement. That's the main thing. And decrease pain, of course. Sometimes that obviously that's a big goal, but really the thing is, a lot of the time is to notice changes, and half my job is saying to people that look where you were 6 months ago. The change is quite significant. People feel that they slip back, so it's almost like an encouragement, a personal trainer. So it's focusing on one step at a time, noticing the changes, get good at finding information that you can compare with them, and step back from that medical model of diagnosis and cure. Anytime you've got somebody that's saying this is a protocol within your treatment to fix this condition, they've kind of missed the point, and you're dealing with people, you're not dealing with a problem. I get therapists that go, I've got this client with this, what should I do? And it's like, I don't know, because I haven't met the client. I don't know what the problem is. They've got that condition, but that condition doesn't define them, and it's the individual and their own definition of themselves that I'm after. So I hope that's not too wafty, if you like, and it's just occurred to me this week, and I thought I might share it with you and see what you think. So please, do you agree, disagree? Put your comments down below, and have you got a diagnosis perhaps? How did you come about that? Maybe an incorrect diagnosis. There's plenty of them around, so let's have a little chat about that. And thanks very much for dropping by. It's always great to have people along, and I will see you next time on Not a Collection of Parts. Bye for now.